Welcome to the new edition of Pre-Snap Look. I'm Bruce Badgley. That's my cohort in crime over there, Joe Santoliquito, and a very special guest for us this week, Bob Long, the man of Bob Long Sports. Bob, thanks for joining us tonight.
Bruce, Joe, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I've been listening all year long, watching your show, and thrilled to be on.
Well, fantastic, Bob. I mean, you're kind of a fixture down there. I mean, predominantly, football wise with LaSalle College, high school, as far as doing broadcasts or whatever like that. But just talk a little bit about, Bob Long Sports and, what it is and what you're trying to do, with that stage.
Sure. Bob Long Sports is a digital media company. We broadcast sports at the high school and college level. And like you said, primarily our high school allegiance, if you will, is with LaSalle High School. We've been working with LaSalle for going on 10 years now. And consistently for the last 7, we've been doing every football game and just about every basketball game. It's a wonderful institution. There are great people there. We've had a lot of support over the years, and hopefully we've brought some joy and some at least some good telecasts as best we could to the constituents. I know that there's a lot of love out there for us, but it pales into comparison in terms of how we feel about the school and the constituency. So that's Bob Long Sports. Is we do live broadcasts of games, and then we also do talk shows about some of our favorite college high D1 teams, Penn State football, Villanova basketball. Bruce, I know you know the Nittany Lions Sports Report well. You've been a guest multiple times. So we do a little bit of everything. We have a great group of people, about 10 guys at any given point or time take part in Bob Long Sports in some respects. And we've actually had 3 students get engaged in the broadcast this year, 3 LaSalle students, and it's been a wonderful experience getting them involved. They have great talent, a ton of enthusiasm, and I think they had some fun along the way this year.
Well, that's great. Joe, you got a question for Bob, or why don't we just dive right in?
Yeah, we'll just dive right in.
Dive right in. I mean,
there's a lot to dive into here.
Yeah, both of you guys were at the game. I mean, we're going to talk, a little bit about this LaSalle St. Joe Prep. So why don't you start, Joe? I mean, just overall thoughts and everything of that big win by St. Joe.
It was a big win. Excuse me. I had the impression going in, and you know this from talking on the air last week, I had the impression that this was a young prep team, and it is still a young prep team that still needed to grow, that still needed to mature in some ways. They had been playing very uneven, and I'll even go here, very unprep-like this year. Excuse me, guys. We all know the standard. We know the standard's high there with St. Joe's Prep. And we know that this is a team that had not been playing the way they were expected to play this season. And suddenly it came as an avalanche. It just exploded. And not even, I was going to say in the first half, not even the first half. Bob was there. It exploded in the first quarter. In the way that game took place, it was 21-0 before anybody blinked. And suddenly here you're looking up at the scoreboard, and not only that, but here, and let's also be realistic. LaSalle picks the worst time to play the worst game of the season. There was a situation where, and by that time, I think the game was even over. It was 35-0 at the half. But there were seconds left. LaSalle has the ball, I believe, at the St. Joe's Prep 2. It looked as if they were going to go into the score. They run out of a wildcat where everybody goes in motion. And suddenly the ball snapped, and no one's there to get the ball. And the ball rolls down to the 37-yard line. LaSalle just blows any kind of momentum that it might have had going into halftime. But like I said, the game was over.
And
by
Joe,
then, and it was just
on that play in particular, it was 4th down, so it didn't matter who fell on that football. It was Prep was going to have it. They're going to have 1 down, and this isn't particularly important, but the fact that a pass interference call at the high school level is not an automatic first down.
Yeah.
There was a pass interference call on that, not goal to go, was first or second and 10 from the 11. And that takes them half the distance. That's a brutal rule, quite frank, regardless of it didn't impact that game at all. But an odd rule at best that's not an automatic first down. It is at every other level of football. So that created that fourth down situation. Again, didn't have a huge impact, but
yeah, I mean, obviously this was nothing that any of us, expected.
No.
Clearly, no. I mean, but being, quite honorable, Joe and I didn't expect the fact that it maybe not necessarily that St. Joe Prep would win the game, but that it was so one-sided as far as the score goes, right, Bob?
Yes. I mean, that was the surprising part for sure. LaSalle's offensive line struggled with the stunts and the different disguised motions that the defensive line of St. Joe's Prep was employing, and I give them a ton of credit. And what I'll say is that defensive front is not what I saw against Archbishop Wood. Yeah, or certainly even in October, but the week before, they were down 14-6 against Archbishop Wood in the fourth quarter, and in the ensuing 5 quarters, it's looked like a state championship team. For the prior 3, even 7, and I know the prior game was in a monsoon against Father Judge in the last game of the regular season. For those 7 quarters, it looked like a first-round exit type of team. And so what they've found in the last 5 quarters, I think, is a team that if they continue to play to this standard is going to be very difficult to beat. Not to mention, and Joe, you may know this better than me, I don't know Samaj's injury status, but they didn't ask a ton of Dane Piccirillo. Made a really nice throw on the first drive of the game. That was about it. And if you get Samaj Jones back, I think that opens up the passing game a little bit more. But beyond that, you get your star senior tight end back in Dane Piccirillo, and it makes the offense even more dynamic.
Yeah. It was interesting after the game. I had spoken to Coach Tim Roken, who does a great job year after year after year. And this may be his best job so far. I mean, you have Kyle McCord and Jeremiah Trotter and Marvin Harrison Jr., 3 guys that may be one day in the NFL.
Just don't get in the way, right?
Yeah. Well, Tim does a great job every year.
Of course.
It does help. It does help when you have great talent like that. But what he's done this season with this group and how he's molded these guys, because I asked him, I said, I said, you got Prep fans that are out there that are frustrated. I said, God knows what must have gone through your head. He says, yeah, we were all frustrated. He says, we're all really angry because we know the talent, the capability of this team. We weren't seeing it. No one was seeing it, actually. We know the standard. We all know the standard that this team plays with, the program plays with. Say, hey, here's direct quote to me. We got kicked in the teeth 6 weeks ago here. Our guys weren't happy. Our guys weren't happy with how they were playing. And they were the ones who looked themselves in the mirror and wanted to do something about it. And for as much as, they changed some things up and they were running stunts and they were doing a lot of different things. And I still think, by the way, there's a lot of things that Prep hasn't let go yet. So there's still going to be a lot of things. You think you have them on film? No, you don't. I'm going to warn everybody out there that's going to be facing this team. There's going to be a lot of new tricks and gadgets as this team progresses in the state playoffs that are going to continue. We saw what were they doing, Bob? Jumbo heavy on the left side. They kept on running left side. And here's the deal. The South knew what was going to happen. Made adjustments, and then Prep made adjustments upon those adjustments. So,
yeah, I mean, Reinhard on the left side of that line, Reinhard is a star offensive lineman, and they pounded behind that strength. There's no doubt about it. It's I don't know if it's the line of Kyle McCord's junior year. You probably remember that team. That's one of the best offensive lines we've seen at the high school level.
Yeah, I call that championship game. All they did is just like hand the ball off to Burrell and just left, and that was it.
Because Kyle McCord was hurt. I mean, it was always a run-first team, but with McCord hurt, sure, and you have Malik Cooper at quarterback, did an admirable job, but it's not the same offense at that point, so you lean on that offensive line, right, Bruce?
Yeah, I mean, it's how much do you think it was revenge factor in all of this?
A lot of it. I mean, that was the first thing out of just Shy Trotter's mouth to me. I mean, we felt as if we didn't play the way we were capable of playing that first time around against LaSalle. And it's interesting, and these were LaSalle people telling me this after the game, Bob. Best thing that happened to us, beating Prep in October. Worst thing that happened to us, beating Prep in October. Because we had a bunch of guys that were feeling themselves, so to speak. We had a bunch of guys that thought, hey, we got it now. Everything's good now. We beat our nemesis.
And there were a bunch of guys who cover high school sports that felt the same way. It wasn't just maybe the team. I mean, there was a consensus. There was the unique part about this whole thing is there was a consensus that LaSalle was favored. And which is
and
contrary.
we keep talking about maybe we haven't talked about it enough. Dane Piccirillo comes out of that huddle, right? We even mentioned it on the broadcast. The offensive linemen were shielding him. We didn't know until he walked out on the field who was going to be the starting quarterback, right?
Oh, I knew. I wrote that beforehand. I wrote that on Friday.
Gotcha. Okay, fair enough.
So I mean, and right now, Samaj Jones he's on a week-to-week basis. So
okay.
But
the one thing I would push back is, and I hear you about the best thing that happened was beating St. Joe's Prep. The worst thing, I don't know. I think that, or I like to think that the LaSalle team learned its lesson the following week. They beat St. Joe's Prep, then they
got
lose
upset by Roman.
A cataclysmic game against Roman, right? I mean, they'll tell you to a man, it shouldn't have happened. Yeah. They learned their lesson. They beat Roman Catholic 45 nothing in the first round. And I think that was that gut punch, and that I'm giving more credit to St. Joe's Prep than I am taking away from LaSalle. Were there mistakes? Absolutely, right? A couple times they didn't have the right amount of guys on the field. Let free rushers through. Alan Paterzo, he's had an excellent season. His legacy is set as an all-time great LaSalle quarterback. His senior year was phenomenal. He didn't have any time. I'm giving more credit to St. Joe's Prep, recognizing that LaSalle maybe definitely didn't have their best stuff. I don't know that it's a lack of focus or taking St. Joe's Prep lightly. That's the only thing I'd push back on a little bit.
Okay. All right. Well, obviously we'll talk a little bit about, later in the show about, St. Joe Prep moving forward or whatever. But, bottom line is that, LaSalle was favored and St. Joe Prep really took that to heart, used that as a big motivating factor to come out on top. And you know what? That's what makes sports great are instances, just like that, Joe, right?
I have a question for Joe and maybe even you, Bruce, if you saw, any of the video from either of those games. But tell me about the 7 quarters starting the last game of the regular season where St. Joe's Prep plays Father Judge. And I know that was Monsoon. But then, so those 4 quarters, the first 3 against Archbishop Wood, they're down 14-6. And then what happened in the next 5? Because as a guy who watched film on all of that and then saw what happened in person, I don't understand it. And I mean, it's 2 different teams. One's a state championship caliber team. And if that's what we see the rest of the playoffs, then it could be St. Joe's Prep in a familiar place in Hershey. If they play the way they did against Archbishop Wood, they could lose earlier than that. What do you think happened?
That's still the big question here. I tend to lean toward the proverbial. They got their kick in the butt. They got their kick in the butt by LaSalle in October. I think what's happened here, and this is a core group, a young core group that's been there, done that. A lot of these juniors have been they know that taste because a lot of these juniors they were part of that state championship team the last 2 years. It's a 3-peat. They're going for the 4-peat this year. They know what it's like to bite the cherry, so to speak, the sweet nectar. And it's something that they didn't exactly want to let go. That core group told me going into the first LaSalle game, much the credit to LaSalle. They deserve it. They won the game. Okay. But also the other side of it, which I left out of what I had written. We're talking about high school football. It's not the Eagles or anything like that. But there was a series of bad practices going into that. There was some discipline things that needed to be tightened up going into that first game. there were some things there that had to be straightened out on the field and off the field. And they got straightened out to the credit of Coach Roken, to the credit of his staff. There was some things that they needed to address, and they did address them. And I think you saw a part of it. Do I think Prep is 35-7 better than LaSalle? No, I don't. But that Prep team that beat LaSalle on Saturday is going to be an awfully tough team to beat now and moving forward.
Sure.
I mean, it was 21-0 with 1:57 left in the first quarter when LaSalle got its first down. And by that time, here I'm looking at my stats. When they had the 35-0 lead, I mean, LaSalle had only 51 yards of total offense, and they also had 5 negative plays for minus 68 yards.
Sure.
Well,
and how did that happen, right? How did that 21-0 lead happen? A great first drive, no doubt, but then a scoop and score on a blind side,
and the block punt that set
and
up,
then a blocked punt, and that set them up at the 2. So even St. Joe's Prep probably only had 70 yards of offense at that point to LaSalle's, whatever you said, 50, and they're leading 21-0, and that's just how it went. And that was the end. Not the end, but it turned out to be the beginning of it.
Yeah. Clearly.
Two other things. I mean, one, much credit to Coach Roken, because I think by that time the LaSalle kids, I mean, they always play hard. Coach Steinmetz does a great job, but they had their hearts ripped out. Tim, if he wanted to, Coach Roken, and I know, but he could have really run up the score, and he did. He played it, he played it straight. We have control of this game. There's respect there. I know there's respect there, and I know Coach Steinmetz, if he was in the same role, he would have done the same thing. So this is a Prep team that still hasn't reached its potential, and a lot of those guys after that game were saying, we still have a lot more whoop ass, left in us. I also know this from the Soderton situation of last year in last year's state semifinals when St. Joe's Prep beat LaSalle. I think it was 62-55 or whatever it was, and I remember being at that game where Prep had it was Soderton. When Prep had a huge lead against Soderton, and Coach Roken pulled the cords and let his second team play almost the second half of that game, and Soderton made it really, really interesting in the end. I don't think we'll see moving forward how far Prep goes with this. I don't think we'll see that again. I think if any plug is pulled, I see it just maybe straight ahead runs, but I don't think he's going to be pulling the personnel like he did there in the Saturday game in last year's state semifinals. I also think this is a defense that needed to find itself. They needed to turn around and they needed to discover themselves, and that's what they did in this game. They found out what they actually could do. And again, I say it. I remember Bob talking to you after the game in October. Again, good thing, bad thing. And I cringe when I was saying this. I mean, did you kick the bear? You not only poked the bear, but you kicked him. And you kicked him pretty hard in the groin.
And I'm with you, Joe, but the thing I keep going back to is, you're talking about a series of not so great practices leading up to October 2nd. I'm not even talking about October 2nd. I'm talking about November 6th when they're a fourth quarter comeback away from not even being in this game. Archbishop Wood, a team that LaSalle the prior week had beaten 21-0. So that's just where I can't figure out, and I give St. Joe's Prep a ton of credit.
Actually,
turning the Titanic.
I kind of have an idea of that. It's just
sure.
they've been push me I come this whole season, and I know I know for a fact it's driven the coaching staff. They have to have their backs. It's almost as if they have to have their backs against the proverbial wall and slapped in the face, not once, not twice, but 5 or 6 times before they freaking wake up. And I'll tell you what, that's what I was seeing on the flip side of it on Saturday. I'm thinking, okay, Prep takes the ball, they run the ball down, the opening kickoff, 7-0. Okay, let's see what LaSalle has cooking. I understand. Help me out, Bob. Your middle linebacker, number 44. Great.
Chris Thompson. Yeah,
Chris
absolutely.
Thompson. And this kid comes back. He's a force. And again, I'm thinking.
He didn't play in game 1. You're right. He didn't play in the first one.
There's going to be he's certainly an impactful player, special player. like Abdul, like Sam Brown. And I'm waiting and I'm waiting and I'm waiting. And I think the air got taken out with the blocked punt. When they blocked that punt, okay, the scoop and score is one thing, but when they blocked the punt and they came back and scored again to make it 21-0, okay, you're running out of the Wildcat. And Ryan Moore did a very, very good job. I found out something too. I didn't know this. This is scary. I covered Ryan Moore's dad at Innerburg. Ryan Moore Sr. Ryan Moore's father, the old man, was a hell of a player. Went on to play at Gettysburg for 4 years. So what he did, and I'll tell you what, he was not giving up. It could have been 100-0, and Ryan Moore was not going to give up. He was going to keep on playing his tail off.
He's a special one. Yeah, his legacy. I mean, we talk about a lot of those guys, right? His legacy is set at LaSalle as an all-time great as well.
Yeah.
They
They did a lot of amazing things this season. They deserve a ton of credit. The only thing that was frustrating, and Coach Steinmetz spoke to me about it, this was not the time to have our worst game this season.
Well, he's right about that. It happens. It's tough. It is tough and tough for the kids to stomach, and that's just how it goes sometimes.
Yeah. It always ends poorly. It doesn't matter. When it ends, it always ends poorly.
One team wins the last game, right, at every classification.
Yeah. And the thing, I think that the thing that has come out of all of this, and I think I said it, last week's show, but I think that because of what Joe talked about, is the inconsistency of St. Joe Prep this season has given hope to teams that that they're not this just a juggernaut. Now they obviously played a very good game against against LaSalle there, but just like you were talking about, Bob, the two previous games show that they're human, and if other teams catch them on those kind of nights, that they have that opportunity. So what team is going to show up? I don't know, but I think that that's what's given hope not only to District 1 and District 11 to kind of get through this juggernaut that they've never been able to get through, at least recently with St. Joe Prep, but the rest of the state. I mean, they're what are they, 5-time defending state champion in 6A? I mean, so there's blood in the water, and I'm just speaking, for me and what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing, but there's blood in the water that this is a wide open tournament. And I know that St. Joe Prep is playing well, but they're certainly not the prohibitive favorite to win the 6A title, in my view, that they have been the last few years.
No,
the gap's narrowed.
But they might still be the favorite, whether they're prohibitive or not. Especially if we're talking about Northeast this week. And Kenny Talley's unbelievable, but St. Joe's Prep's going to be wildly favored in that game.
Yeah.
They will be wildly favored against what's coming out of District 11, right? I mean, there's up and down years. And then, okay, so you're 2.5 weeks from now when you're playing District 1, you're saying Samaj Jones is week to week, so you get your starting quarterback and your starting tight end back? I don't know.
Yeah,
that's tough to beat.
Well, I'll tell you what's going to be interesting and what's going to be tough to beat. And I think they're on the radar, but and Bruce knows where I'm going with this. You got to be Garnet Valley.
Yeah. Well, and they, just kind of segueing into some of the other games, Garnet Valley did, for some reason, 41 and 42 seem to be really popular winning scores last week. But, Garnet Valley played well enough to win 41-13 over CB West, which forces a showdown, with Quakertown.
And Garnet Valley.
The Rodney Dangerfield of District 1.
Well, Quakertown has some balance. I did something on them a couple weeks ago. What Quakertown doesn't have is what Garnet Valley does have, and that's 20 to 25 good football players. Not great football players, but good football players to come at you in waves. And what may now be, what possibly could be, an All-Delco District 1 championship between Central League rivals Garnet Valley and Ridley. Ridley is, and there's a reason why I went to, I thought Ridley had a shot at North Penn. Really had 2 14-point leads against North Penn. North Penn battled back, and I'm thinking, finally, let's see what North Penn's able to do. They had a shot, and Tahir Mills just bowled over everybody. 334 yards, I think, on 44 carries, 5 TDs, including what resulted in the game-winning touchdown in overtime. And they have, Bruce, we spoke about it with Coach Ricky last week, Garnet Valley coach Mike Ricky last week, and just in terms of how explosive Ridley can be and how explosive Ridley is. I saw Coachville, who will be facing Ridley in the other District 1 semifinals. I saw Coachville against Chester. And again, that's my point of reference. And I hate to say that's my point of reference, but that is what it is. It's my point of reference. Coachville just barely got by Chester. And granted, there was times Chester was a very, very good football team this season. That Saturday morning, they happened to be excellent. They happened to be very good. But Ridley won't make the mistakes that Chester team made. And Ridley has, again, between Mills and their quarterback, they have that the talent, they have the explosiveness to cause problems. And that's what I see. I mean, I see Ridley. I see Ridley winning again, and I see a Ridley Garnet Valley District 1 final. I just, again, like I said, I know what Coachville's able to do, but I don't know if they can keep Mills in check. Kahim Powell. Now, I've seen Kahim Powell twice, and I saw him once against Garnet Valley a month and a half ago. We're trying to kick off for 95 yards for a touchdown. The second time I see him Friday night. What's he do? 82-yard kickoff return for a touchdown at the end of the first quarter against North Penn. So there is it's got to be an interesting game. It's got to be.
What are your thoughts on some of the District 1 6A stuff?
I thought that game was one of the most entertaining high school football games I've ever seen. Yeah. Had me questioning incredible offense, porous defense, or a little bit of both. But man, and Mills can play. I mean, there is no doubt about that.
And no offers, Bob. He hasn't gotten an offer yet.
Yeah. Well, put that film up.
It's going to change.
Yeah. No kidding. I'm with you. If I had to make a pick this week, I might throw Coatesville in that district final against Garnet Valley, but I did like what I saw offensively from Ridley. Had a couple questions defensively. I think that's fair, but there are 4 really good teams left in District 1, and it'll be fun to watch this coming weekend. I really do like Garnet Valley in that other game, though. Impressed with what I saw. They run that option to perfection, and quarterback's a really good decision maker from what I've seen.
Yeah, Max. I hope I'm pronouncing Max Bushenkill, who's going to Notre Dame, by the way, going to Notre Dame on a lacrosse scholarship, but the kid's still a major Division I athlete.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about it is they're not. Garnet Valley has athletes. They're not necessarily, football players, but I mean, they're athletes, and that's the important thing. And then the 5A side, between District 12 and District 1, I mean, it seems to be kind of heading here between Imhotep and Westchester Ruston. I mean, we've all seen TEP this year. Mm-hmm. Ruston is another one of these Rodney Dangerfield teams where, they've been at the top all year, and are people really giving them their due, and do they have a shot to beat Imhotep?
No. No.
Bob?
Imhotep should be. They're good enough to hang with the big boys. They're good enough to hang with the 6A schools. That's how good Imhotep.
So, Joe, I haven't seen him in a while. How is that offense developing for Imhotep?
Well, a lot better than it was when I saw them earlier this season against Ridley. They have a junior, a sophomore tailback who's excellent.
Is that McLeod?
Yeah, he's the younger brother of the one that is at West Virginia.
Right.
So, and we both saw what he could do. We were both at the LaSalle game earlier this season.
Mm-hmm.
When he was on the field,
Yeah,
he
kind of
played-
got the lightning and thunder, right? I
Yeah.
mean, he can run you over, but has
Trey
very
McLeod,
shifty.
he played a role in that game. And then suddenly when he went down, think about this, when he went down, their offense went nowhere.
Mm-hmm. So as a guy who doesn't have a ton of a vested interest in 5A other than seeing really good football, all I want to see is Nick Singleton against that defensive front for Imhotep. Is that too much to ask, guys?
That's what everybody
Well,
wants. That's a heavyweight showdown.
And it would only happen in a state championship game. So, which would be the ultimate scenario is that if that plays out. So I think that's the matchup that everybody wants to see. Well, whether we will see that's what these next few weeks will determine, but it sure looks like they're on a collision course to meet up in Hershey, but Cathedral Prep may have something to say about because that's who Imhotep probably would be their biggest competition. And I'm used to seeing those two fight it out for a 4A championship, not a semifinal 5A berth in the state title. But it is what it is. I mean,
and it's Father Judge this weekend for Imhotep back to District 12, right?
Yeah.
So Father Judge, Imhotep, District 12 final, 12 p.m. Northeast High School.
Yeah, I'll probably be there for that, and then I probably then run back down to my neck of the woods here at O'Hara from Northeast and St. Joe's Prep, which is going to be at 6:00 at O'Hara Saturday night. So it's
nice of them to space that out for you.
Yeah, they had me in mind, I think, Bob.
You're the man, Joe. That's right.
Can he be in both places at once? So, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and I'm looking at what to do Friday night. I probably will be going to Quakertown and Garner Valley, even though I'm tempted to check out Schuylkill and Newman Goretti.
Great segue, man, because that's what I want to talk about next. Is some of these others great matchups coming up. Yeah.
I do you know anything about this team that Newman Goretti's facing?
North Schuylkill. Just they've been a powerhouse team really for about the last 3 years. Their only loss was in that monsoon night at Pottsville, who's a very good 4A team. But North Schuylkill, got to know the coach pretty well. Him and I were almost bosom buddies at the Big 33 this year, but got to know him over the last couple of years. The program, they really play tough football. They're going to play high percentage football. It's really, I think, a clash in styles. It's like who's going to be able to basically inflict their will on the other team here, in that one. But I would be honest with you, I think it favors Goretti only because North Schuylkill's got to come down there. And that's quite honestly, it's not familiar territory. And I can tell you that it does make teams from up that way very uncomfortable coming down to Philadelphia. What do you think, Bob?
Yeah, and you have, well, Newman Goretti has, Anthony Johnson, who's going to Rutgers, and Sean Battle, who's undecided right now. The two major players. Sean Battle can go to any school in the country. Does North Schuylkill have any kind of firepower to deal with guys like that?
Well, they right. Athletically, they don't. But as far as a team and as far as the skill level of those guys, they've got some firepower. The question is whether they have the athleticism to match up with the athleticism there, with Goretti, which is always one that until you see him on the field, you just don't know.
Yeah. Bob, you know anything about North Schuylkill?
I do not. Better to be honest and take your lumps when you don't know. So I'll absolve myself from that one. But as a Catholic League guy, I would love to see Newman Goretti do well.
Yeah. And there's a very interesting 4A matchup between Prendy and Shanahan this week too. You guys are Catholic League guys. Talk a little bit about that.
I have not seen Prendy play this year. Prendy Bonner, I'm used to calling him.
Yeah.
I'm just not used to calling him that. My point of reference was Newman Goretti. pretty much having their way with them earlier this year. I think it was, well, no, actually, if I remember, that was it 28-22, or if I could look it up here. Okay, it was 26-20. There we go. Okay, Numa Goretti beat him 26-20. So I don't really know much about Bonner Prendy. I know they're coming out of 4A, having won we'll call it maybe what the old city championship used to be. So that's about it. I don't really know much about Shanahan.
Shanahan's playing very tough this year.
I watched some film on Bonner Prendy. Now, admittedly, I wasn't necessarily paying as much attention to Bonner, but I watched Roman film. They won that game. They beat Roman Catholic, 12-7 final score was, and it was
that's a big win.
It is
because Roman has some talent. Roman has some ability.
They do. I mean, arguably the best receiver I've seen this year in Tysier Denmark.
Mm-hmm.
And he's only a sophomore. But Roman also really hadn't put together a ton of complete games. So I don't know what to take away from that, other than they matched up with a pretty physical team at a 6A level that had to go play St. Joe's Prep and LaSalle and beat LaSalle this year. And they beat them. And, you mentioned being close against Newman Goretti. It's a solid program there at Bonner Prendy. And I know, seeing folks there associated with the school, there's a lot of excitement about this matchup.
Yeah, I like it a lot. I think that quite honestly, out of that section of the 4A in the state, whoever wins this, I would favor to come out of that half of the draw going into the state tournament. And then also we've got another PIAA matchup in West Catholic and York Catholic. So you guys could talk about West Catholic. I'll talk about York Catholic.
Again, I don't have too much great familiarity with West Catholic, other than being a smaller school that plays in the Philadelphia Catholic League. I maybe call me 6A spoiled with with things this past season.
Not a particularly strong record. 3-7, 2-5 in the league. I don't know that there are a ton of teams in the Catholic League, if any others, at that classification. So I think they're here by that.
Mm-hmm.
But you tell us about York Catholic.
York Catholic is a juggernaut. Very talented team. They rolled a very good Upper Dauphin team in the District 3 championship. And actually it was funny. I ran into some guys that were actually at that game and just had nothing but great thing. Very knowledgeable guys. I won't say exactly who they were, but very knowledgeable on exactly what went on in the game. And they love the heck out of York Catholic, and these are guys that I respect their opinion. So York Catholic still undefeated as well. So
I would take York Catholic in that game.
Yeah, I would too. I mean, West is here because West is a smaller school, and
right.
Then the rest of the teams in the Catholic League, and that's why West is where West is.
Right. And so in Garnet Valley versus Quakertown, it sounds like we're kind of in agreement that it looks like it's going to be that Garnet Valley is going to kind of end the Cinderella story.
Probably. Again, it's the Scarlet Wave, bro. They come at you in waves upon waves upon waves, and I don't know if Quakertown has the ability, the manpower to hold them off. I know, speaking to Coach Ricky, he is very impressed by them. Thinks it's going to be a very, very good football game. Ton of respect for what Coach Bannis has done at Quakertown, which is historic. I got to ask them again how long this has been since it's what are they? They're 11-0, right? It's been since '56, since they were 10-0. So this is some rare ground for them. But it's not. Here's the deal: it's not rare ground for Garnet Valley. This is a group of guys that they're seniors on this team. Many of them are 3-year starters. They have a cumulative record, and Mike was talking about the regular season when we had them on last week at 25-1. But I looked it up; they're 28-2. This senior group at Garnet Valley is 28-2, with their losses coming against Will Howard, who's now at Kansas State, and their loss coming in the district semifinals to Coachville a few years back.
Yeah, right. I was actually at that game. So, and that's when,
and they are currently with the 6 wins last year and the 11 this season. They're currently on a 17-game winning streak.
Bob, what do you think?
Listen, the team that's going to beat Garnet Valley, and I'm not saying in reality, but the proverbial team that beats Garnet Valley is not only an athletic defense, but a really fundamentally sound gap to gap, control your assignment defense. And I think it'll be a challenge for, not to say that Quakertown isn't that, but I think it takes a special team to beat Garnet Valley, particularly with the athletes they have, the wrinkle nature and the uniqueness of that offense. I don't think it's this weekend. No.
I don't think it's this weekend, and I think that these kids are playing for something more than just themselves now. Okay, this is Mike Ricky's final
last year.
Yeah. This is his final drive. I mean, this is it. This is the last waltz for him, and I think that emotion in and of itself is something, coupled with all these good athletes and coupled with the fact that they've got this experience, can turn into something special. So I like him in this game, and we'll see how it continues to move forward. But I think that that whole emotional factor of this being Mike Ricky's last waltz, I think, could carry him a long way in this tournament. But that's yet to be seen. And
it's the first step at a time. They had never won. Now I was there when they won the before classifications. I was there when Garnet Valley reached the state championship and won a District 1 PIAA title. I was there for that. They've been to the district finals twice as a 6A school. They have never won a District 1 6A championship. So that's your first step. And then the next step, we'll worry about the next step, because the next step will be new terrain for them going into the 6A state playoffs. And again, they're a very, very dangerous team for whoever they face. I think, well, I don't think I know they're on Prep's radar. I know that. I mean, granted, a dot in the distance a little bit, but I know they're on Prep's radar. So,
which is an interesting matchup if we were to see it, because the ability of St. Joe's Prep to pass rush and how much they impacted LaSalle's timing was otherworldly, right? I mean, it completely took LaSalle out of the game plan. What did LaSalle have a little bit of success doing? Now, granted, as the game got away from running the football. And what is Garnet Valley doing? What does Garnet Valley do really well? They run the football. If you get them passing the football, I think that's how you can beat that.
It's a game of matchups.
Yeah.
And so that's interesting, because you could argue that Garnet Valley's rushing attack lines up okay against Prep. I mean, that defensive front is really good. I'm just saying the strength is a guy like James Hurd lining up in a 3-4, not putting his hand in the dirt, kind of swerving as an outside linebacker, roving around and getting into the backfield. And Garnet Valley's offense kind of neutralizes that.
Yeah. And so who do we think between Ridley and Coatesville? I'll be honest with you. I think you guys think it's Ridley. I'm not going to put words in your mouth. I think it's Coatesville. I think it's Coatesville.
I'm gonna go Ridley. My point of reference is seeing them giving Garnet Valley all kinds of hell 2 months ago, and then seeing them again against North Penn and what they did going up to North Penn. Again, they had 2 14-point leads, blew it twice, came back and still won that game. Right now they are sky high. Right now and David Wood's an excellent football coach. People forget that. David Wood was a longtime coach at Widener. The guy's been around. He knows how to keep things cool, calm, collected. And I saw that firsthand on Friday night, and how they dealt with losing both of those leads, on a chilly night at North Penn, going up against a ravenous North Penn crowd. I was right there in the middle of it, and they still pulled it off in the end. You just had a sense that, you know what, North Penn could do whatever they want to do to us. We're not going to turn around and run away and hide. We're going to stick around, and that's exactly what they did. And Mills is a man child. North Penn knew what was going to happen, and here it's like one of those deals where, here, come and stop us, and they still couldn't stop them. Here everyone and the planet knew. There was a minute and a half left during regulation. And what was Ridley going to do? They're going to hand the ball to Mills, and Mills turns around and breaks off a 65-yard run to put Ridley in a position to kick a game-winning field goal towards the end of regulation, which, by the way, I don't think the kid Valpone, if he had that opportunity again, I don't think he's missing that kick. But then he comes through, kicks the extra point in overtime, and they had a kid O'Donovan who comes out of the blue like he shut out of a cannon to turn around and block North Penn's extra point. So they're getting a lot of contributions from a lot of different people. They have a really fine mesh of power and speed with this team. And it's a team that is, I don't know if Coatesville has the kind of collective skill level, skill position speed as Ridley does.
Interesting. It is funny though, Joe, right? What's your short yardage play? What's your third down play? Hand it off to Mills. Okay. What's your home run play? Hand it off to Mills. It doesn't matter, right? I mean, he's a guy who can take it.
Bob, I think there were people hanging on Friday night wishing, I'll give you my car, go down. I'll buy you pizza for life, go down. He had everybody and the mother hanging on him, and he still rushed for 333 yards.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Well, I mean,
So,
Bob,
who do
you
you like out of that matchup? I think you had leaning towards Coatesville.
I was leaning Coatesville, but I think this could be one of the games of the weekend for sure, right? I mean, this feels like an old-fashioned battle here. I think these are two very talented teams. I think the winner has a lot waiting for him, a tough one waiting for him in Garnet Valley. But yeah, this could be your game of the weekend.
I like Coatesville. I like Coach Ortega. I think he's one of the best defensive coaches, maybe in the state of Pennsylvania. Granted, they've had, their share of, ups and downs. They only have one loss, and that was to York High. So, I mean, they've proven themselves to be pretty resilient. And like I said, I'm a big fan of Coach Ortega. He's a great defensive coach. I think that he's going to have something put together to keep Ridley in check. And they're at Coatesville. So I like Coatesville.
They went up to North Penn too.
I know. I get that. I get that too.
A young man, he did a nice job. Coatesville junior quarterback and defensive back Harry Susi, who again I saw against Chester, but they can get to him a little bit. I mean, I see Samaj Turner is a nice tailback for Coatesville. But again, I don't think I just have questions about the overall speed of Coatesville, and if Coatesville could corral the kind of explosive offense that Ridley has.
Yeah, well, we'll see. And does anybody think that Judge has a chance against Imhotep?
Bob, you saw what I saw way early in the season, which was a hell of a football game that LaSalle beat Imhotep with. Imhotep is just, I mean, Eli White, here's another young man. He could easily be playing. He's certainly going to be playing on Saturdays and possibly one day even be playing on Sundays. He's a beast. And then you have Keon Wiley on the other side. People forget, so you have one of the top, if not the top rush end in the nation and Eli White, but you have a young man on the other side and Keon Wiley, who's going to Penn State. People forget that, so
yeah.
You have it both ways, and you're not going to escape. It's a very, very difficult situation that any offense is going to have a problem with.
I hear everything you're saying. Imhotep extremely talented. Father Judge played St. Joe's Prep really tough. I'm going to abstain from picking this one if you get my drift.
Yeah, I get that. And from my perspective, look, I think that Judge is maybe overachieved a bit this year. and I think I'll be honest with you, I think that a lot of the teams, you can look to a lot of the teams that maybe have overachieved this fall are the ones that played in the spring, that kind of used the spring schedule to kind of leapfrog forward. Okay. Like the Chesters, like the Chichester, like the Father Judge. Okay. These are teams that kind of built on that momentum. And unfortunately, I think, Imhotep, I mean, they're going to come out of the darkness of, playing their public league schedule and now emerge in this state tournament as the juggernaut that we all know that they are. And I think that they start here, against Father Judge this week. So, but that's why we play the games. I mean, nobody thought that it would be a 7-point game between St. Joe Prep and Father Judge, right? Wasn't it?
Yeah.
Was it what, 20 to 13?
I think it was a 1-point
13.
game.
A 1-point game.
13.
Okay.
Frank McCardle does a great job there. He's their head coach. And here's something too. I mean, if I'm Frank McCardle, I'm actually running it Enai way. I'm forcing him to both, you want to come upfield and show how deadly you are as a pass rusher, which he is. But, you're going to turn around and try to pay a price a little bit. I mean, Bob, Judge far better than either myself or Bruce. Does Judge have that kind of offense to turn around and really kind of attack Prep that way? Or I'm sorry, Imhotep that way. Where again, you have Enai who's coming up. I want to maybe go at him and keep on attacking that side.
Right.
Where I'm going to make he's got to start thinking.
Their leading rusher and their leading passer is the same guy, right? So their leading rushers, their quarterback Mike Van Horn, Eric Smith, tremendous running back. They have two backs that they can go to. They didn't throw a pass against St. Joe's Prep. Now, neither did St. Joe's Prep, but they prefer to shorten the football game. Yeah. They prefer to run the football. And that same thing we talked about not letting, St. Joe's Prep pin the ears back. Well, same thing with Imhotep. I think it's going to be a lot of rushing attacks, maybe a pulling guard. They have this, I love this guard, and I forget his name, Doherty, maybe. He's like a 195-pound guard, 5'8". But this guy is super athletic, and he's the right guard. He pulls left on a lot of plays when they run to the left side, and they give you this power look, and could be interesting. I think Imhotep certainly is the odds-on favorite coming in. But Father Judge is going to rely on Mike Van Horn, Eric Smith, physical runner, and see if they can shorten that football game a little bit and stay in it into the second half.
Yeah, Bob, that's the way they beat him. That's the only way they beat him. Because here's the deal. You know it, and I know it. Bruce knows it. Imhotep gets out 7-0, 14-0, 21. It's over. It's over because from what you're describing here, this Judge offense, this Judge team's not built to come back.
No, it is not.
No.
It's built to get a lead.
I think they'd tell you that too.
Yeah.
The only thing I would say, by the way, Bruce, you were talking about the teams in the spring, right? Well, Father Judge was one of those teams.
Yeah, absolutely right. I got to know Coach McCardle. I covered, quite a few of their games, and it was a pleasure. And the one thing that and maybe people forgot this about Father Judge is when they started the spring schedule, they went ahead and scheduled a game for West Catholic following the end of the U10 schedule, just to give West Catholic another game. So Father Judge played so well, they qualified to play for the U10 title. And rather than to play for the U10 title, they honored their commitment to their fellow, Philadelphia Catholic League team and went and played their game with West Catholic.
You know what?
Great memory.
To go and try.
Great memory there, Bruce.
Yeah.
No,
kudos to Coach McCardle. And knowing Frank the way, that's typical. That's typical, Frank.
Yeah, it was great. It was funny because I was on the field with Frank, and then the athletic director. I got to know him, and they were telling me this story, and it just made me feel good. That your word means more than any championship ever can. And what a life lesson that school gave to their students on fulfilling obligations. I felt was something that was a great story, and I think
Yeah.
it did get told, but it one that affected me positively, and I'm glad I had this opportunity to share that about Father Judge and the spring season and everything like that, because it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Last
yeah.
comment, they haven't played a game, or by the time this kicks off, they won't have played a game in 22 days.
Yeah. That
Oh,
could
that's
be a little
right.
bit
That's
rough.
right. They got I don't know if you want to call it a bye. I don't know exactly what you want to call it.
Double
It's the only
bye?
5A. It's the only 5A team in the Catholic League.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, it is.
I don't know if that's good or bad, but
Yeah.
it just is.
Yeah.
It is the situation.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. I actually think it might be good. I think it might be good to heal a bunch of guys up. I think it may be good to gather some more information, and it's even that much because they certainly have an idea who they're going to play. So I don't think they'll be scouting for anybody else other than Imhotep. So that gives you further time to prepare. So who knows? Who knows what that can all translate into? I mean, again, the utmost highest regards for Coach Frank Ricardo and the program he puts together each year, and the respect that I have for him. Yeah, I mean that's just, they say that's why they play the games. So who knows? I mean and putting the cherry on top is the fact that no one thinks Judge can beat them. So there's a lot of factors here that are actually in Judge's favor.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Well, I think that's about it, guys. I mean, we've had a great show, Bob. Hey, thanks for joining us. Pre-snap look. So what'd you think, man? I mean, hanging with Joe and Badge here on a talk show. I mean,
I loved it. You usually boot your guests way before now, so thanks for letting me hang on.
well, usually
I'm kidding.
No, but usually we have coaches or players
that have Monday, that have Monday
correct.
meetings and things like that.
Actually, we did have one other guest, a media member, Dave Micah, who was with us for the entire broadcast because I was a
Nice.
media guy, and obviously we have all the time in the world, don't we?
Yeah.
Not
That's
that we
us.
don't have other shows to do or other lives to lead or jobs to go to, right?
No, I think you guys do a great job with this show. I think the
thanks,
idea was a great one, really was. To put a look into District 12, District 1. I know I've enjoyed listening all year long and happy to be a part of this week's show. Thank you both.
Okay, thank you,
All right,
Bob.
well, listen, actually our season finale will be next week because we'll be it kind of translates over to the PIAA tournament there. So Joe and I'll have to put on our look at our crystal ball a little bit, but then Joe and I eventually end up in Hershey anyway, together for Eastern PA football. Joe will be up in the press box. I'll be down on the field. And so, that's really, for us, we've got our ticket punched. Now it's like, who are the teams that are going to join us there is really what's going to be the most fun, right, Joe?
Yeah, and right now, we still don't know. In years past, we certainly had an idea who one of those teams would be, but it still makes this a lot of fun. And then the other thing too is, again, there's a lot of things out there that a lot of intangibles that young men are playing for, and a lot of things that are I'll go as far as saying a lot of things that are deeper than football.
Yeah.
Again, I bring up the Garnet Valley situation and a group of guys that are playing for their coach, and you don't see that and hear that in this day and age. Not often.
Yeah, not often. All right, gentlemen, listen. Thanks so much. Thanks for everybody for tuning into Pre-Snap Look. Thanks to Get Recruited Consulting, who sponsors this show, and our man Andrew Cohen. So until next week for our season finale, for Joe Santoliquito, my buddy Bob Long, I'm Bruce Badgley, man. We'll catch you on the flip side. Take care now.